There are reports that a new dirt track could be added to the NASCAR schedule in the coming years, and it's probably not the one you're thinking of. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope you have all had a good week. We're in the middle of a busy Bristol weekend. Last night was the truck race. Congratulations to Sam Mayer getting his first ever Truck Series win. Only 17 years old. That was his fourth truck start of the season, his seventh of his young career. And he wasn't done there, as a matter of fact. Late last night, Sam Mayer won his fifth ARCA race of the season, again at Bristol Motor Speedway. 17 years old, and he swept the Thursday night action at Bristol. That's pretty impressive. We are going to talk about the Adam Stern report in a few moments about a new short track possibly being added to the NASCAR schedule sooner rather than later, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of these young drivers we've seen in ARCA and occasionally in the NASCAR Truck Series and occasionally in the Xfinity Series here in recent years, or really I should just say in recent months. It's all kind of happening right now as we speak. I get asked quite frequently, Eric, what are some drivers in like the lower series, like even lower than trucks, ARCA or formerly K&N East and West, what are some drivers down there that you're looking at as possible Cup Series stars maybe a few years down the line? And there's always a few easy targets to mention, but if we focus specifically on the ARCA Menard Series this year, a series that sure is not quite where it once was. I'd say this year on average there's maybe 9 or 10 competitive cars in each race, and especially on the big tracks the disparity between the good cars and the bad cars is overwhelming. But even so, there are clearly 2 or 3 names that have emerged as maybe the next big name, exciting up and coming drivers. NASCAR hasn't really had a super exciting, like surefire future Cup star come through the ranks since, I would argue, Chase Elliott. I would honestly say Chase Elliott was a pretty surefire, can't miss driver. And sure, it took him a couple years to start winning in the Cup Series, but now he's emerged as, he's been a championship contender the last couple years, even though he hasn't quite made it to the championship 4 just yet. He's a true contender. Nobody denies that. Guys like Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones, William Byron also flew through a lot of the lower ranks, dominated most of the series they competed in, but their time in the Cup Series, I would say, has been far more inconsistent than Chase Elliott so far, so it's hard for me to say that even those guys are surefire Cup stars here 5-10 years down the line, but they're certainly on a decent path. But if you look right now, there are 2 teenagers at the ARCA Menard Series level that I think are can't miss prospects at the moment. And then there's Hailie Deegan, easily the most popular driver of anyone in the ARCA Menard Series, easily the most talked about in recent years. We'll talk about her as well in just a moment, but I want to start with Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer maybe put himself on the map last night. A lot of people had heard of Sam Mayer. I knew who Sam Mayer was because last year he won both ARCA Menards races or both K&N East at the time, races at Bristol last year. He dominated them. Kid from Wisconsin, grew up racing the short tracks up there, much like my favorite driver, Matt Kenseth. So I tend to believe Sam Mayer's got what it takes to make a run at the NASCAR Cup Series one day. But he's shown out this year. If you look at his numbers this season, he has not raced in every ARCA race this year because technically since he's not 18, I don't think he can race at the big 1.5 and bigger tracks. So that limits his schedule also on the Truck Series side of things. But he's won 5 of the 12 ARCA races. This is the main ARCA Series races that he has entered in, and now in just his 4th start of the season, no practice, no qualifying, he is also a winner in the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoor Truck Series, which that is remarkable. Because trucks this year, while yes, it's kind of thought of as the 3rd NASCAR series of the 3 National Touring Series, it's also, I would argue, more competitive than it has been at all in recent years right now because of the spec motors. Because this year, teams like Front Row Motorsports, DGR Crossley, Bill McAnally Racing, a lot of new teams coming into trucks right now and a lot of competitive teams. You look at the 10 drivers that made the playoffs, all very stout, but if you look at a few of the drivers that just missed on the playoffs, a KBM truck missed out, Johnny Sauter missed out, you look at the drivers that just missed out on the playoffs, there's a pretty long list of really good teams and really good drivers that didn't even make the playoffs in trucks this year. So trucks are super competitive. And for a 17-year-old kid to roll into just his 4th start of the season and win, he beat Brett Moffitt straight up. Well, I guess there was some strategy at play at the end of this thing, but my point remains is he beat a stout Truck Series lineup at Bristol, one of the more difficult and unique tracks on the schedule. Watch out for Sam Mayer. He also just last week signed a deal with Junior Motorsports. He's returned to JRM. Once he turns 18 next summer, he is going to be running the second half of the 2021 season for Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, and the plan is for him to go full-time at JRM in Xfinity in 2022. He'll be 18, 19 years old at that point. I would not be shocked if Sam Mayer makes his Cup Series debut before the age of 20, and we don't see that too often. Even William Byron, who is an extremely young driver when he got into the NASCAR Cup Series, he was 20 years old when he made his NASCAR Cup Series debut. So, of course, I don't want to put all this pressure on Sam Mayer too early on, but it's hard to deny that he is talented, and he's, put it on full display this weekend for all to see at Bristol and FS1. So watch out for Sam Mayer. I have high hopes for this kid. Now let's talk about driver who finished a close second, a distant second, honestly, in last night's ARCA race, Ty Gibbs, another young teenager. How old's Ty Gibbs? I think he's also 17. Yeah, my goodness, what was I doing at age 17? Well, Ty Gibbs also has shown out in the ARCA Menard Series this year. He hasn't run any Truck Series races yet. He hasn't run any Xfinity races yet, so he's still maybe a half step behind where Sam Mayer's at. But Ty Gibbs, if you couldn't guess it from his name, is the grandson of Joe Gibbs, owner of Joe Gibbs Racing. Ty Gibbs is also not able to run the entire ARCA schedule this year because he's not 18 years old, but in the 12 races he's competed in, he's won 4 of them. It's really been the Sam Mayer versus Ty Gibbs show most of the ARCA races this season. Now, Ty Gibbs, to be honest, I know less about. I think he's extremely talented, but he's also driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. He's in Toyota equipment in all these ARCA races or K&N East or West races that he runs in, so he's in good equipment, but I think a lot of folks will be quick to discredit Ty Gibbs because of his last name. Oh, of course he's good. He's a Gibbs. It's all the equipment. It's not the driver at all. And I don't think that's entirely fair. I think Ty Gibbs is a legitimate driver that may need to refine some things before he makes the jump into trucks or Xfinity, but I do believe Ty Gibbs is going to get a real shot. Being a named Gibbs, being last name Gibbs, will help him get good opportunities, at least to start his career. But he seems to at least have the motivation, I think, to really work at it and get better and improve. And I mean, just following him on Twitter, he hates losing. Even at age 17, even these ARCA races, when he wins so many of them already, when he loses, like last night, he went on Twitter and he was not happy. You could tell it ate at him. I got serious Kyle Busch vibes from Ty Gibbs. You know, the competitive side of Kyle Busch, at least maybe not in the past some of the crazy Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch hates losing. When he finishes second, he's not happy. He's quick to shrug things off. Ty Gibbs, I get similar vibes. When he doesn't win a race, it eats at him, especially a race he thought he would win. He felt like he should have won. Whenever he runs second or third, he is unhappy. And I actually can respect that a lot, because there are a lot of young drivers that have a lot of funding behind them who, you know, clearly will have an opportunity in the future that when they lose races, you just don't get that kind of emotion. You know, they obviously want to win, but it's not kind of life or death almost for Ty Gibbs. It's like make or break his entire week if he wins this race or finishes second. And I will say that's kind of refreshing. That's the kind of attitude you see and hear from kind of a guy who's not sure if he's going to keep racing the next week or the next month. A guy who's literally racing for his job on a daily basis. That's where you typically see those types of attitudes and that emotion come out. Ty Gibbs is showing it, and we know he's going to be in a decent NASCAR ride for at least another year or two. At least, you know, for a period of time, as long as his last name is Gibbs and as long as Joe Gibbs remains in NASCAR, I think Ty Gibbs will have an opportunity, but it still is up to him to make the most of it. So keep an eye on Ty Gibbs as well. I think people are going to be very quick to discredit Ty Gibbs, and I don't think that's entirely fair. Keep a close eye on Ty Gibbs. And now I have to talk about Hailie Deegan, because Hailie Deegan, like I said, is the biggest name in the ARCA series. Don't lie, I'm sure she's the number one reason many of you tune in to watch ARCA races, if you tune in to watch ARCA races at all. I'll admit, I've missed a few this year. When you only got 8 competitive cars, it's sometimes difficult to watch, but Hailie Deegan this year is in her first full-time season in the main ARCA series. You know, she's got a few wins last year and the year before in the now ARCA West series. She's emerged as a great dirt racer, which isn't entirely surprising. That sort of fits her background. She's got 2 of her K&N wins, ARCA West, I keep mixing up the names, ARCA West wins at a dirt track, but she clearly has proven that she is decent enough and can hold her own at most short tracks on the schedule. Now, I do want to make this very clear. I think Hailie Deegan still has great potential to make it into the NASCAR Xfinity trucks and maybe one day the NASCAR Cup Series. Hailie Deegan is going to get opportunities down the line, but the truth is this year in 2020, I have been disappointed with her results, with her performance this year. A lot of people will be quick to point out, oh, but Eric, she's 3rd in points in the ARCA series in her first year. Like, that's pretty remarkable, right? Remember, guys, there's only like 8 or 9 competitive cars each week, and if you actually look at the ARCA series points, there's only 4 drivers that have actually run every race so far. I just mentioned Sam Mayer, Ty Gibbs, they've both missed like 4 or 5 races each, so even though they've won so many, that's not enough to make up the fact that they've missed out on so many races and gotten 0 points. So she's really 3rd out of 4, and typically when there's 8 or 9 competitive cars, she's usually running around 7th or 8th, let's just be honest. And personally, it is difficult for me to tell if she's actually learning or improving this year. This year is all screwy with the pandemic anyways, gonna make it hard on a driver like her to learn as well as she might have been able to otherwise. But with the ARCA Menard series being the way it is, being where it's at right now, being as non-competitive honestly as it is, I just don't think anybody in that series is really learning as much as they would be if they were in, say, trucks or Xfinity. Some of y'all might disagree with me, but honestly, even though her performance has not been phenomenal this year, I like to see Hailie Deegan in a NASCAR truck next year. Maybe not full-time, but at least for a good number of races, because she obviously has Cup Series intentions. She's going to be huge for the sport if she ever makes it to the NASCAR Cup Series. I think get her in a truck. If she sits in the truck series for 2 or 3 years and just kind of runs mid-pack or runs 15th in a decent truck, like, it is what it is. She's going to learn better in the truck series than she is in ARCA. As much as I think guys like Sam Mayer, Ty Gibbs are super duper talented and might be the next big thing, if Hailie Deegan can just run top 15 in the NASCAR Cup Series consistently, she's going to be bigger than any of those drivers combined. That's just the truth of it. It's you could say it's unfortunate that NASCAR is a sport that's so heavily reliant on personality, and sometimes talent is not the most important thing. Sure, that's something that we can discuss and isn't super, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a good thing. I think sports should be about the best performers at their specific role or position or profession. I think it should be about the most skilled athletes at the top of their game, performing against other top skilled athletes. I think that's what should be the primary focus of any sport, any motorsport, anything. But this isn't anything particularly new to NASCAR. NASCAR has been this way for decades. As long as they've been reliant on corporate sponsorship, and personality matters, popularity matters quite a bit. So Hailie Deegan certainly has a future in NASCAR, but I do want to just kind of mention that right there. She's disappointed me this year. While for most drivers, I would say that means another year in ARCA. In Hailie Deegan's case, I'd rather get her in a truck ASAP. And if she sits there for a couple of years, so be it. She's going to learn way more in the truck series than she is in the ARCA Menard series, the rate the ARCA Menard series is kind of going the last couple of years. That's just my take there, but let me know what you guys think. Anyway, I haven't talked much about ARCA this year. There's just been so much else going on this season that I haven't really had much of a chance to step back and really discuss it. But wanted to do that because I know a lot of people watched last night's race at Bristol, and Sam Mayer made quite the statement, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit in today's episode. But now I do want to talk about the other bit of news from today. Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal, out of nowhere, tweeted, NASCAR, Speedway Motorsports, and other industry stakeholders are discussing the possibility of running a dirt track race at Bristol in the coming years. And he says, although talks are in the early stages. And he mentions that Bristol first did this with World of Outlaws in 2000 and 2001. Oh, just when I thought I'd heard it all this year, here comes a new one, straight out of left field. Or is that right? I guess that's my right, your left. It's coming out of nowhere. All right, first and foremost, let's take a step back and be realistic about this. He mentions, even in that tweet, that this would be probably a few years down the line. I don't think this is happening in 2021, but my goodness, the idea of Bristol Motor Speedway, Thunder Valley, world's fastest half mile, last great Coliseum, being turned into the newest great dirt track on the NASCAR schedule. I mean, the only other dirt track on any NASCAR schedule is Eldora on the truck schedule. Of course, this year's was canceled because of the pandemic, but typically, last few years, Eldora's had a single date on the truck schedule, midsummer, midweek, usually classic race. Puts on a pretty good show, but it's very different from a normal NASCAR truck series race, so it is sort of its own unique thing. I don't know how to feel about this Bristol rumor report, these Bristol rumblings. Bristol Motor Speedway, the asphalt version that we have today, that's going to be raced tonight for Xfinity and tomorrow for Cup. That Bristol Motor Speedway is my favorite track on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I loved old Bristol. I even kind of like new Bristol when the fast groove was all around the top. Current Bristol with the PJ1, honestly, I think is the best Bristol I've seen in my, albeit fairly young life. Bristol Motor Speedway is my favorite racetrack on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I don't like the idea that NASCAR is wanting to mess with it. If they were to add a dirt track version of Bristol to the NASCAR schedule, the Xfinity schedule, or even possibly the Cup schedule, because it's worth mentioning in that Adam Stern tweet, he doesn't specify if it'd be a Cup race, a truck race, an Xfinity, or anything. He just says, in general, could be a dirt race in one of these series. If they're going to add a Bristol dirt race, I don't want it to replace one of the two current asphalt Bristol races on the Cup Series schedule. I know the spring race has struggled with attendance for several years now, so I'm sure that's what NASCAR's thinking. They're thinking, hey, let's swap out that spring asphalt Bristol race with the spring dirt Bristol race. That'll get fans in the seats. That'll be a new attraction. And maybe they're right, but I know if I lived in Tennessee, I'd be at every Bristol race every year. I mean, I wouldn't miss a Bristol race for the world if I could avoid it. I understand that maybe fans in the region, they've seen Bristol go through many different changes, and now that there's two Bristol races, the night race is still kind of the hot ticket, the big deal. I understand that the spring race is kind of forgettable at this point. Weather's often gotten in the way of the spring race as well. I understand that, but I really would hate to see current Bristol lose its two dates on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I know they're adding a new short track in Los Angeles with Auto Club Speedway being converted to a half mile in a couple years. I know they're doing that, so at least we're going to have another half mile short track on the schedule, but I'd hate to lose a current Bristol date, even for something as wild and unique as a Bristol dirt race. And now, quite frankly, I don't really think the NASCAR Cup Series ever needs to go dirt racing. Honestly, again, this isn't confirmed that's a Cup rumor or an Xfinity rumor or anything, but if we're just going to talk about Cup Series, I just don't think it needs to. Certainly not for a points race. I'd love to see him try it as like an all-star race, an exhibition race of some sort. I'd love to see him try it, at least in that capacity. But I just worry this is a case of NASCAR stepping outside of its wheelhouse a little bit too far. I mean, a Bristol dirt race would probably be entertaining. It would probably be very interesting, especially the first Bristol dirt race when we wouldn't know what to expect. I'm sure it would be entertaining, but this is hard because part of me says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like I said, current Bristol, the asphalt Bristol, I think is perfect. But at the same time, you could argue it is broke because obviously fans aren't turning out for the spring race anymore most years. So maybe there is something broke about current Bristol. Maybe it does need to be converted in some wild way for, this brand new type of race. Maybe that would work. So I'm not going to dismiss this rumor, this report as horrible, dumb, bad for the sport. I'm not going to go that far, but personally, I don't really need to see it. Again, if it happens, I would just like it to not replace one of the current Bristol race weekends, but I have a feeling it would. It would more than likely replace the spring weekend, but I don't know. It still sounds like it's far off, so I just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention today because I was stunned to see that in my Twitter feed when I was scrolling through it this afternoon, so I figured I'd share it all with you guys. 2020 is full of surprises, but that's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and of course, a big thank you to my fantastic Patreon supporters. Couldn't do this show without your tremendous support. If you also want to support the show, check out that top link down below in the description. I greatly appreciate it. Xfinity race is tonight. Cup race is tomorrow night, the final race of the first round of the playoffs, so there'll be a lot to talk about after tomorrow night's race, I'm sure. I will see you all then. Thank you for watching. Take care. Have a great rest of your night.